Um, Picture a place you've almost certainly been to.
Okay.
Close your eyes for a second if you can. And just imagine standing just inside the entrance of a library. Like, really think about what it actually feels like to step through those doors.
Right. The whole atmosphere changes.
Exactly. The air shifts. The pace of the world outside instantly slows down. I mean, a library is not loud. It doesn't, demand your attention.
Yeah, not at all.
It doesn't announce its importance with flashy signs or blaring music. And yet, despite all that quiet, people inherently trust it. They feel totally safe in it.
They really do.
They bring their curiosities, their deepest vulnerabilities, and let's face it, their weirdest questions into that space.
Yeah.
And they keep returning.
It's a fascinating paradox, actually, when you look at how humans behave in those spaces.
Yeah.
Because we are so conditioned to associate importance and impact with noise and visibility.
Right.
We assume the loudest person in the room is doing the most work.
Oh, for sure. The squeaky wheel.
Exactly. Or we think the most visible leader is having the greatest impact. But the librarian operates on a completely different frequency. They possess an enormous amount of insight without making a sound.
Yeah.
They see exactly who comes in. They notice what obscure, highly personal or strange things people are searching for. And crucially, they know when someone's usual habits change, but they never expose it.
Right.
The entire value of that space, its very existence as a sanctuary, depends entirely on an unspoken foundation of trust.
Which brings us to the core of what we're talking about today. We are exploring this unexpected, but honestly brilliant analogy.
Yeah, it's a great one.
We are unpacking how the quiet, predictable nature of a library holds the absolute secret to effective safeguarding, managing highly sensitive information, and building profound professional trust.
It's really eye-opening.
The source material for this deep dive zeroes in on a specific role called a DSL, which is a designated safeguarding lead. And if you aren't familiar with the term, a DSL is the point person in schools and educational settings dedicated entirely to student safety and well-being. They are the ones ultimately responsible for protecting kids from harm, abuse, and neglect.
And the connection our source material makes here is that effective safeguarding is built on the exact same quiet foundations as the library.
Yeah, which is so counterintuitive.
It is, because when we hear the word safeguarding, our minds naturally jump to, dramatic interventions.
Right, sirens and running down hallways.
Exactly. We picture running into a burning building or pulling someone back from a ledge. But the reality of this work is that the most critical, life-saving impact happens long before the fire ever starts. It happens through quiet consistency and professional discretion. The most profound impact is often completely invisible to the outside world.
So even if you never step foot in the school again or don't work anywhere near the education sector, this deep dive is a masterclass in how any professional in any industry can become a safe place that people naturally return to. Let's look at how this deep, unshakable trust is actually constructed. Because it starts with how information is gathered, right?
Yeah.
Which happens long before anyone actually opens their mouth to ask for help.
Right. Information gathering begins with the immense power of quiet observation. This is what the source calls core insight 4.
Okay.
Think about a librarian sitting at their desk. They might seem entirely focused on organizing a catalog, but they are constantly reading the room.
Always watching.
Always. They are picking up on subtle signals without drawing any attention to themselves. They see when a regular patron suddenly stops coming on Tuesdays.
Huh, yeah.
If we translate that mechanism to the safeguarding role, insight rarely begins with someone walking into an office and declaring a full-blown crisis. It begins much earlier.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the psychology of that, the concept of baselines, is so vital. It actually reminds me of how a highly advanced weather radar functions.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. A weather radar is always spinning. It's always gathering atmospheric pressure, wind speeds, humidity levels, but it doesn't sound a blaring, panic-inducing alarm every single time a fluffy white cloud passes by.
Right. It would drive everyone crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It spends all its time establishing a baseline of the sky. And by knowing exactly what a normal, clear day looks like, the radar can instantly spot the actual severe storms brewing on the horizon. Its strength is its silent vigilance. It doesn't need to shout to be working.
That is so spot on. That internal baseline is the only way you can accurately spot a deviation.
Yeah.
Human behavior is so varied that if you don't know what normal looks like for a specific individual, you are completely blind to their subtle cries for help.
You just wouldn't see it.
Right. You won't notice when the typically outgoing team member becomes uncharacteristically quiet, or perhaps when the usually reserved person becomes loud and erratic. The observation has to be ongoing, constant, and crucially, unobtrusive.
But let me push back on this approach for a moment.
Sure.
Is there a danger that in trying to be this silent radar, a professional might just seem detached? Like, if I'm quietly observing my team, or a DSL is quietly observing students, isn't there a huge risk we just look like we aren't paying attention at all?
That's a really valid concern.
Because in our society, we generally equate caring with being outwardly active, right? Asking a million questions, constantly checking in, making our presence felt.
It is a really common trap to confuse quietness with passivity. This is the strategic insight from the text. Quiet observation is actually an intensely active state of mind.
Okay, how so?
It's the difference between merely hearing ambient noise in a room and actively listening to the individual instruments in a symphony.
Oh, wow.
When you are quietly observing, your cognitive engagement with your environment is incredibly high. You're constantly processing data, looking for behavioral anomalies, building a mental map of the people you're responsible for.
So you're super engaged, just quietly.
Exactly. You are just choosing not to broadcast your engagement until it is strategically necessary. You do not need to be loud or performative to be highly effective. The engagement is internal, waiting for the precise moment it needs to become external.
Okay, that internal processing changes the dynamic entirely. But gathering all this highly sensitive information, spotting those storms on the radar, is completely useless if you mishandle the data once you have it.
Oh, completely.
Which brings up a massive misconception about what confidentiality actually means in practice. We tend to think of confidentiality as a steel vault. You lock the information inside, spin the dial, throw away the key.
Yeah, and our source material completely reframes that assumption. This is a crucial pivot. They state explicitly, confidentiality is not absolute silence. It is controlled, purposeful sharing.
Controlled sharing, okay.
Think about the librarian again. They know incredibly intimate details about their patrons' lives based strictly on their checkout history.
Right, because of what they're reading.
Right. They might know someone is researching a serious medical diagnosis, looking for a divorce lawyer, or trying to understand bankruptcy law.
Oh, wow, yeah. That's a lot of heavy stuff.
Exactly. The librarian holds that heavy knowledge, but they only share it if absolutely legally necessary, perhaps in the case of a subpoena. For a DSL, or any leader holding sensitive information, the mere fact that you know something does not mean you have the right to share it.
So what does this all mean? Like, think about how this applies to your daily life, your workplace, or your friendships.
Yeah.
Poor handling of information damages trust instantly and often irreversibly, even if your underlying intentions are perfectly good.
Right.
Let's say a colleague confides in you about a severe financial struggle they're having at home. If you tell another coworker, thinking, oh, we should really go easy on Sarah this week, she's going through a lot, you have fundamentally breached her trust.
You absolutely have.
You took her personal narrative away from her and distributed it without her consent. Protecting someone's dignity has to remain paramount.
The concept of dignity really is the anchor for this entire discipline. And confidentiality is exactly that, a rigorous professional discipline. This is core insight, too.
Right.
It involves knowing exactly what specific pieces of information to share, knowing when the moment is right to share them, and knowing precisely who to share them with to ensure safety.
It's so strategic.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Safeguarding requires holding highly sensitive information and distributing it strictly on a need-to-know basis. And honestly, this requires you to sit with information that might make you deeply uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You have to actively resist the very human urge to offload that information onto someone else just to relieve your own internal anxiety.
That urge to offload is so real and so human. Gossip, even when it is disguised as genuine concern, is often just a release valve for our own discomfort.
Oh, definitely.
We hear something heavy, we feel the weight of it, and we want someone else to carry that secret with us. But the discipline of a true professional is carrying that psychological weight without dumping it on unauthorized people.
And the result of carrying that weight properly over a long period of time is profound. Core Insight 3 tells us that safe spaces are built over time.
It's not overnight.
No, trust is never created in a single moment of grand intervention. It's an accumulation of thousands of micro-interactions. It requires a highly predictable environment and a consistent experience.
Right.
A person needs to know that the way you calmly reacted to their minor problem on a Tuesday is the exact same controlled, non-judgmental way you will react to a major life crisis on a Friday.
Yeah, and the source material actually notes something really powerful here. It says, the most effective safeguarding relationships are the ones individuals actively choose to return to.
Yes.
Because you cannot force someone to be safeguarded. You can't mandate trust from the top down with a memo or an all-hands meeting. People have to willingly choose to walk back through your door when they are at their most vulnerable.
And Core Insight 6 tackles exactly this. Accessibility matters just as much as deep expertise in earning that return visit.
Accessibility, right?
A library works beautifully because it's fundamentally welcoming. The doors are propped open. It is physically and psychologically easy to enter.
Yeah, it's not a fortress.
Exactly. In the same vein, a safeguarding adult or any trusted professional in any field must be approachable, available, and visible. You could be the world's foremost expert in trauma psychology, but if you are hidden away in an office with a closed door, answering emails with a severe expression on your face, absolutely no one is going to come to you with their problems.
Right. It makes you think of the mechanics of a neighborhood coffee shop.
Oh, go on.
You probably don't keep going back to your favorite local spot just because the coffee is like chemically, scientifically perfect.
Right. I mean, the coffee has to be okay, but...
Right. The perfect extraction of the espresso is their expertise.
Mm-hmm.
But you go back because the barista remembers your face. The lighting is always right. You know the music won't be overwhelming. And it's physically easy to grab a cup on your morning commute. The reliability, the vibe, and the accessibility are what actually build your deep loyalty. If the greatest cup of coffee in the world requires you to navigate a confusing maze and deal with a wildly unpredictable, dismissive cashier, you are simply going to find a different coffee shop.
That's a perfect way to put it. The environment has to organically invite engagement. The library becomes a refuge because it is a consistent space where people feel deeply respected.
Yes.
Trust is reinforced through repeated, positive, low-stakes interactions. You check out a book, the librarian smiles and processes it efficiently. You ask for directions to the restroom, they guide you politely.
Right, just normal, easy stuff.
Exactly. These seemingly insignificant moments lay the vital groundwork. You are meticulously building the road before you ever need to drive the heavy truck over it.
Build the road before you drive the heavy truck over it. That is a fantastic image for understanding relationship building.
Isn't it?
But as much as this library analogy illuminates the foundational, quiet work of building trust, we do have to talk about where it breaks down.
Yes, we do.
Because there is a critical limit to comparing a DSL or any duty of care role to a librarian, and crossing that line is incredibly dangerous.
We absolutely have to look hard at the boundaries of these roles. What DSLs must absolutely not take from the librarian role is passivity in the face of imminent danger.
Right.
Ultimately, safeguarding requires decisive, often disruptive action. The text gives us this really stark, critical difference table. It points out that a librarian's primary mandate is to protect information, but a DSL's primary mandate is to protect individuals.
Okay, so a librarian can let you check out a book about how to build an explosive device, and they will likely just quietly observe it, protecting your privacy and your right to information.
Right.
But a DSL cannot observe a student talking about building an explosive device and do nothing. The duty of care shatters the silence.
Exactly. Confidentiality can never override the duty to report a risk of harm. Not all information can remain private, and this is the fundamental difference in the roles.
The table breaks that down further.
Yes. It notes that a librarian maintains confidentiality almost unconditionally. A DSL, however, has to constantly balance the promise of confidentiality with their legal and moral safeguarding duty. While librarians observe quietly as an absolute rule, a DSL observes quietly only up until the exact moment intervention is required to save a life or prevent harm.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The sheer psychological tension of this reality is staggering.
Oh, it really is.
If you are a DSL, an HR manager, or anyone in a duty of care position, you are walking an incredibly thin tightrope. On one hand, you have to build the quiet, welcoming sanctuary of a library. You have to be the predictable, calm barista to encourage people to open up.
Right.
But you also have to be completely ready to instantly switch into crisis management mode, into first responder mode, the absolute second it's required. It is a profound balancing act.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
Yeah, you are inviting people to whisper their deepest secrets to you, but you carry the heavy responsibility of knowing exactly when to grab the megaphone and call for outside help.
And managing that tension without permanently shattering the trust you've built is the ultimate test of the profession. It's exactly why professionals in these fields are at such a high risk of burnout and compassion fatigue.
Out, I bet.
You are constantly holding a paradox in your hands. You desperately want to promise total secrecy so the person feels safe enough to tell you what's wrong, but professionally and legally, you cannot offer a blank check of confidentiality.
Right.
You have to navigate those agonizing conversations by explaining your boundaries without pushing them away. You have to say, essentially, I am a safe space, but if you tell me something that means you or someone else is in danger, I have to act to protect you.
Yeah, it is so hard.
Explaining those limits while keeping the panicked person in the room requires immense psychological skill.
And taking those highly nuanced individual skills, the quiet observation, the controlled sharing, the psychological balancing act, and trying to scale them across a whole organization seems almost impossible. Like, how do you take the behavior of one exceptional professional and turn it into a system-wide culture that actually functions?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, scaling that culture is the ultimate leadership challenge.
Okay.
A strong safeguarding culture ensures information is handled with that same quiet professionalism across the entire board, not just behind the closed door of the DSL's office. If you have one superstar DSL who everyone inherently trusts, but the rest of the staff chronically mishandles information, the whole system fails. A person needs to feel safe approaching any adult or manager in the building.
Because if a math teacher or a mid-level manager handles a sensitive disclosure terribly, maybe brushing it off, acting visibly shocked, or gossiping about it in the break room, that individual isn't going to seek out the designated expert next time.
No, they won't.
They're just going to shut down entirely. The broken link breaks the whole chain of trust.
The source material looks at how this applies to organizational structures, specifically pastoral systems, breaking it down into universal layers.
Okay, what are the layers?
At the very foundation, you need safe, trusted relationships and the incredibly respectful handling of information to be the absolute bedrock of the culture.
Makes sense.
Moving up from there, you create developmental pathways where people feel genuinely heard, and staff actively build consistent trust in their mundane daily interactions.
Okay, and the top layer.
Finally, at the leadership level, professional integrity must be completely embedded in everyday practice. Confidentiality and clear safeguarding protocols aren't just a dusty binder sitting on a shelf.
Right.
They have to be the lived, breathing reality of the organization.
It's about institutionalizing the library's quiet respect, making sure every single room in the building operates with that exact same predictable, safe baseline.
Exactly. And the source material poses a system-level question that serves as a brilliant gut check for anyone listening, regardless of what industry they work in.
Oh, I like a good gut check.
Ask yourself this. Would a person in your setting choose to come back to you because they deeply trust how you handle what they share?
Wow. That is the ultimate litmus test.
It really is.
If the answer is no, or even if you have to hesitate for a second and say, I'm not sure, then the system has invisible fractures, no matter how comprehensive your written protocols are. Protocols don't build trust on their own. People building consistent, safe environments do.
Right.
Let's pull all these threads together. What we've learned from this deep dive is that trust is never demanded. You can't put up a poster that says, trust us, and expect people to suddenly open up about their lives.
Definitely not.
Trust is painstakingly earned through consistency, careful observation, and quiet professionalism. True safeguarding and true care for another human being is not loud. It is steady, respectful, and entirely built on a foundation that naturally brings people back when they need support the most.
We are left with a vital question to carry forward in our own lives every single day.
Okay, what is it?
If someone shared something deeply sensitive with me today, would my immediate instinctual response make them more likely or less likely to come back to me tomorrow? That is the ongoing evaluation every professional should be running in the back of their mind during every interaction.
I love that. And I want to leave you, our listener, with one final thought to mull over as you go about your day.
Yeah.
We've talked so much about observation, building trust, and the quiet nature of success in protecting people.
Yeah.
If the ultimate goal is a perfectly trusted environment, a true sanctuary, then the actual metric of success isn't how many explosive crises we handle or how many fires we put out.
Right.
It's the completely invisible metric of how many crises are avoided altogether because someone felt safe enough to whisper a problem to us before it became a scream. Think about that quiet library. How do we, in our own lives, in our workplaces and homes, measure the quiet success of a crisis averted? How do we become the kind of quiet room that people seek out long before the storm hits?
That's a powerful thought to end on.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take care, keep observing, and we will catch you next time.